Hello there. Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Now let's get to the next discussion. Nigeria is commemorating 62 years of independence from her colonial masters, but some Nigerians say that 62 years after, nothing seems to have changed for the average Nigerian. But it appears President Muhammadu Buhari does not share the same sentiment as he scored his administration high in his independence broadcast. According to the president, efforts in setting the economy manifested as Nigeria exited 2 economic recessions. Buttressing his achievements on the economic front, he lauded the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act as a landmark achievement, adding that his investment in the agricultural sector through a series of incentives to micro, small and medium-scale enterprises resulted in creating millions of jobs. He also called on striking university lecturers to have a rethink and return to the classroom, stating that he is pained by the recurring disruption to the tertiary education system. He promised credible, free and fair elections come 2023 and touched lightly on security, stating that banditry and kidnappings are being addressed by the security forces. Some Nigerians have taken to the social media to disagree with the president, describing his speech as a figment of imagination that is far from the realities of the masses. That's the crux of our discussion. So joining us now is lawyer and public affairs analyst Adedotun Ajulo. It's nice to have you join us this morning. Good morning. Welcome. Now, I believe you listened to the broadcast by the president and looking at also the realities on ground and all of that. A lot of Nigerians seem to be on all sides. Some say, well, the president has done really well. Others have said, well, we expect more. But we still have some who are sitting on the fence. Well, whatever you guys do, we don't care. What do you make of all of this mix where we can't agree, even though we face the same thing?
Well, the situation of the country, as well as in trying to looking at the situation of the country with the special speech on the 1st of October, I will tell you my perception about the speech. It is more of a parting speech of the president than issues.
Of course, that was his last speech as president.
Very well, very well. However, I must say that the president touched on certain issues, particularly on the area of agriculture, talking about the inflation and the recession we've been into and all of that. And in all fairness to the president, you wouldn't adjudge that the country or the president has done so badly. Well, a lot of Nigerians seems to be looking at, and most of the time talk about how things have been wrong about the country. But I can say boldly that looking at where we are coming from, one wouldn't even expect that we can get to this point or this level. And we must say kudos to the president to a very large extent. So I agree with the president on the areas he touched in the speech. And there's nothing other than the truth in what the president said. In as much as we are challenged as a country, we must acknowledge the fact that we are not at war as majority of some people make us to feel. Our challenges hasn't brought us to a state of despair. I can tell you, we're in this country, like the president rightly mentioned, the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act is one of such that one should commend, and the impact as far as our economy is concerned. Though we might think we are not feeling it now, but I can tell you that in some few years' time, Nigeria will begin to feel that. Looking at the electoral reform, the passage of Electoral Act of 2022, bearing in mind, we've had certain elections, that of Ekiti and Osun. I was personally involved in this election as an observer and the rest of it. You must give kudos to the president. We are far away from where we were in 2015, where we were in 2011. So when we want to look at issues as well, it was under the same dispensation that we had Not Too Young to Run bill being passed into law and all of that. So in as much as we are not there, we must not lose sight of the fact of the progress we've made as a nation.
Well, people have had a lot of complaint over Buhari's term in office. One of the indications is the value of the currency. Currency, when it was in office, was before it came in, was something around is it 300 or something like that? Now it's more than doubled. The cost of things have gone very high. There's a lot of disenchantment among young people who have now joined what they call the Japa syndrome. How would you put that side by side? The fact that banditry was very, very high when it took office, became worse with herdsmen crisis and all of that. We don't hear much about herdsmen crisis now. The bandits are actually on the run from indications, we've seen of late. And we have seen the infrastructure work being done. Last week we had Tunde Raji Fashola, Commissioner of Works, here showcasing some of the work he has done, especially the second Niger bridge that we have seen. We have seen uptick in power. Now, how do you now really bring these two together? That people are hungry, they cannot get more jobs. ASU is on strike, they can't resolve it. Then you have this.
Well, I would say there is nothing you want to discuss about the current economy, our security challenges, even ASU, like you mentioned, that you can detach to preceding governments. When you are even talking about when you are talking about the difference in naira, the flow of our naira to dollar.
Now you had a point on when Sam asked you regarding progress on one hand and then complaints on the other hand. How we reconcile all of these?
Very well. The challenges comes in different shades. As at the time the current government in power took over, I was analyzing with somebody yesterday, and we're looking at the security issues we have then. When you look at the modus operandi, how they operated, and what we have currently, you can see that it's coming in different shades. You must come to the point whereby you appreciate this current government as well. Then, what we used to have is Boko Haram. On Sundays, people can't go to churches. People cannot gather for Christmas and all of that. That was what we were having typical of Boko Haram. And you agree with me, like, let's say in 2-3 years into the government, their first time, that was all off from the country. But suddenly, we have the issue of banditry. So the challenges, either you like it or not, the effort of the government in curbing this, as a way it manifests differently. We would have expected that in the southeast, when we're having this challenge in the northeast, then Boko Haram, bombing and all of that, we would have expected that in the southeast, someday will come in the southeast that police will be subject of attack, that you won't have people to go out on a certain day and come out on a certain day. So we must commend the government for doing its own bit. The thing about the country, the thing about our challenges is it has its own shades in which it comes back to us. Looking at the lingering ASU issue, before now, we've had strikes. I was going through again to do my own research, and I realized that between 1999 and date, we've had 15 or 16 times in which these people embark on them. And when you look at the things they put forward, they are things that happened previously. When you look at talking about the agreement being signed, it was in 2009. When you are looking at the issue of UTAS, University Transparency Accountability Solution, it is never the making of this current government. Even
but
though
it's not your duty to to complain about what the other people did. It's your duty to fix it.
Yes.
That no matter what the problem is with ASU, it is also the problem of the government. If a child is recalcitrant, nobody will say the child is recalcitrant, and you blame the child alone. You say, who is the parent? Who is the father? So that is where we are now. That if ASU is not able to solve it, the government should find a way to get it behind us. That is the use of imagination. You also have coercive powers, not that you use them undemocratically, but you use them within the ambit of the law to make these things happen. And also imagination, persuasion. They are all powers that are in the arsenal of government to use. But we are, as it were, in a rut. Although I believe in my own way that ASU itself has overblown this because if they feel that they cannot reach an agreement with the federal government, they should go back to school because this government has just a few months. They should go back to school and wait till the next government. But nobody is winning. The real loser is the Nigerian education at the tertiary level. The real loser is the student. The real loser is even the lecturer, unless they want to live a life of indolence. But in the final analysis, it is the government who can even make this happen, that let these students go back to school.
Well, without holding brief for the government, we should not as well close our eyes to the efforts by the current government. That was the point I was trying to arrive at. In as much as most of these issues that ASU was bringing or were bringing on table, they were issues that started with the government. The current government has made its own effort. It has released funds, though they are talking about 1.3 trillion. What I'm saying is this: this was not fund agreed to by the current government. But even at that, payment have been made to ASU. What we would have done, if they didn't get it off with the preceding government, what we would have done was what we have rightly suggested. They will have gone back to school. Either you like it or not, there are appreciable steps taken by this current government. There are appreciable steps taken by this current, not minding where this whole thing started from. So on the issue of ASU, I think, like you suggested, like you said, negotiation should continue. Either you like it or not, the government is coming to an end. And are we going to wait that, okay, even when the new government comes into power, you want to wait until all of that before resumption? That's on the side of ASU. Talking about the dollar rate and exchange rate, the inflation and the rest of it. There was a time in this country, except we want to hide behind our finger and be very, very untrue to ourselves. We knew, the economists knew this day is going to come. We had this analysis that in another 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, we are going to have these problems. And if we must face the reality, we knew it's going to happen. There's no way to go about it. We were in this country at a point in time when the CBN governor came up by saying money is missing, talking about mentioning figures. And where do you think all of that will go to? In as much as a government should be responsible enough or be responsive enough to have taken these issues head on, well, we knew it's going to come. And coupled with the fact that the global pandemic and all of that happened in 2020, there's no way you take away all of this from our challenges.
All right. Now, if putting it that way makes it look like it was destiny. The issue of the inflation rate was destiny, and Nigeria had nothing. Nothing was going to be done about it. Recall the former CBN governor you mentioned. As much as monies were mentioned to have been missing at that time, there were the issue of if something is not done, this could happen. Economists will come and say, if nothing is done, this could be this way and this could be this way.
Ceteris paribus.
Exactly. Where all things being equal in economics. Unfortunately, nothing is always equal. But the reality is that if nothing is being done, it is always a finger pointed at government because they have the authority, they have the capacity, they have the resources, they have the wherewithal to ensure that every other resource or stakeholder aligns towards ensuring that there's a solution in that regard. So if we still have the same issues this way, then it means government must have failed in that regard.
Yeah, let's pray that we have a day whereby we have government in place who can be very spontaneous and very responsive enough to address issues, no matter how it comes.
So are you agreeing that this government didn't fall in that category?
Well, we must, my sympathy to the current government, like I mentioned earlier on, is that a lot of things came in between. That
made them helpless.
This is a government that did all it can to decimate whatever you have in form of insecurity, particularly in the north. And suddenly, we have banditry. Banditry crossover from the north, kidnapping and all of that. Yes, even when we had kidnapping before, way back from 1999, when we started this democracy, we have issue of kidnapping, maybe particularly in the south region and all of that. The prominence, the escalation of kidnapping in Nigeria is unprecedented under this government. We have the issue of banditry. So these are a government that have used a lot of resources in trying to, then what we used to see as an issue in the country was nothing but Boko Haram. But look at the shade in which he come into the government.
Dotun, let me draw your attention a little bit. Recall in the 80s, in fact, when the current president was, I think, chief of army staff or so, he was the one under former President Shehu Shagari who chased Meitasine, the terrorist group at that time, a small network, chased them out of Nigeria into Chad Republic. If you compare the capacity of Nigeria in the 80s and now, one would say Nigeria is better off now in the capacity, the military, all of that, than that time. If they were able to handle all of those things headlong that time, how much more now? Moreover, we're talking about a president who is a retired general who has access to military intelligence, who has access to all sort of capacity. So it looks like saying that, well, it was not his fault for anything to happen. Taking it away from him that the buck always stops on the table of the commander-in-chief.
Well, if we are looking, you just mentioned 1984 and the rest of it. I will still come by saying the evolution of technology, the world we have currently, is different from what we have in 1984.
So are we better off or we're worse off?
Well, in terms of technology, we are better off. But the human thing, the human searchable quest for whatever it is, maybe power and the rest of it, has made the negative impact of whatever development we find in terms of technology has made it very, very, very difficult. And in 1984, what we have, the way a manner crime are being organized or being carried out in recent time, you can't compare with what we have in 1984. Well, in all of this, I'm not trying to absorb the government of any responsibility. What I'm trying to put across to the public there is that, in as much as we have challenges, persons are making it look as if we're at war. You see people on the pulpit telling you Nigeria is at war and the rest of it. And I'm only trying to see it from the angle that there are appreciable progress we have made.
Why is it that people are not even seeing that there is really a downtick in violence in the past 2 months? A lot of people are not ready to accept it. Why is it? Because what we have seen is that, for instance, in Zamfara, Turji Bello, the kingpin there, is on the run. He was chased. In Kaduna, where we're getting news of bandits on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day. I don't remember the last time we heard anything about Katsina or Kaduna There was one in Plateau about a week ago, but that looks like it just came and went. And so why is it that people are not ready to even admit that something has happened?
Well,
Why?
what you can't take away is this. We are in the political era. Elections are the corner. The unfortunate thing about Africa is this. We are more loyal to our political interests than the interests of the nation. It happened particularly in West Africa. Like you mentioned, there's a downtick. It is a political era. As far as people on the other side are concerned, they feel getting to power, you must always make the current party in power to look bad. So the progress being made is widely underreported. Like you rightly mentioned, I was in Abuja last week and I was waiting for a colleague who said he was in Kaduna. And I'm like, how do you do it? Do you have escorts following you there from Kaduna? He said no, that for the past 2-3 weeks we have been traveling through that same road that we used to dread at the point in time. That the road is as free, it's as safe as anything. So all of this will be blamed. This is a political era. People will want to, that's my area that I'm coming from. That yes, we know we are challenged. People feel it is only by making it look that
bigger than it is. But some people are also saying that why is it not cynical that it's towards the end of his reign that he's doing it? I mean, there has been there's this quote from Machiavelli's book, what do they call it, The Prince, when he said that when the sickness, he's talking about fevers, he said when the sickness is, when it begins, it is easier to cure than to diagnose. But when it has become serious, it is easier to diagnose than to cure. So the point is that we didn't detect it early enough, because when the thing is small, you can easily, if you detect it, you can destroy it and kill it. But now we are trying to do like what David lamented in the Bible when Saul died, when he said the beauty of Israel is slain upon the high places, had the mighty fallen and so on. He went on one line. He said from the blood of the slain and the fat of the mighty, the sword of Jonathan did not hold back, neither the sword of Saul. So that's what they are now. They are trying to do like martial with their swords, killing them. And people are saying, why now? Why did he do it before?
Well, I've said that earlier on as well. You see, this thing comes in different shades, and that's what our people don't realize. We're talking about 1984, and we are talking about 2022. As you are trying to, it takes a whole lot of time to study, to strategize. I'm not a military person, but we know that in our day in, day out plan and event that happen around us, when you are confronted with an issue, it takes some time before you get at it. What you see materializing today, some are saying it's towards the end of his government. What's cynical about it, about the end of the government? Nothing cynical about it. You don't know when this strategy has been in place that you see materializing today. But at the end of it all, what we are saying is there is effort. Thank God you observed and you noted it. There is effort, even the security challenges, as we are bringing it in, coming in different states, there is this serious effort on the part of the government.
Same thing with power.
But
people started emphasizing that
on that power,
there have been more shutdown of the grid. That's what people are talking more than the lights and the van.
Do you know I even have a confusion. Most of the time when I read from the news that there is shutdown in the grid and the rest of it, I realize there is power in my place. They will tell you there is a national shutdown. And this makes news. Like my current location where I reside, I have been there since 2014. When I came in 2014, it's like having power like 2 times in a week. And when that one comes, the power, the voltage, you can't even use your pressing iron to have anything done. But I can tell you today, sir, if you as my guest, if there's power outage, I will tell you, okay, they will bring the light in another 5 minutes. They will bring the light in another. And I think the federal government itself, I don't know, they did a lot of disservice to themselves, particularly in the areas of information
Messaging.
Like the issue of
communication,
like the issue of the issue of ASU. Go and ask most of these students carry placard, say we want to go back to school. What are the issues between federal government?
They don't know.
Federal government and the ASU, they don't know.
They just want to go back to school.
I can tell you 70% of them don't know. The progress that has been made under this government towards whatever ASU is demanding for, they don't know. The thing is not outside there. So the communication, the information is not there. The messaging, like you said, is not there. I'm saying this. I'm a young person. I'm saying this. I'm far off better individually and everyone I can see around me. Let me tell you, sir, I've had the course to travel on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway from Ife to Lagos between the hour of 11 and 12 earlier this year.
In the night?
In the night, because I was compelled to do so. There's some persons who make it look to you that you can't walk, you can't. In fact, let me tell you, sir, I had a deflated tire entering into Ibadan. It was policemen on patrol because the car was a new car, so I didn't know the spanner wouldn't be able to loosen. It was the policemen on patrol that were busy stopping vehicles to help me get the four-winger, to loose, and I proceeded with my journey. So I think they've not done, in terms of messaging.
Yeah, but as much as that happens, yes, it doesn't also take away from the fact that there are some days where there are attacks on such roads, whether you're going to Benin or you're going to Ore, or you're going to Akure, or you're going to Ibadan, as the case may be. We also have those cases. Now, the issue there is that the primary, in fact, thank God you're a lawyer, the primary role of government, like we have all known, I am not a lawyer, but we have been enlightened by learned people like you who said that the primary role of government is welfare and security of citizens. So it is not the issue of, I passed there on this day, nothing happened. My sister passed there 2 days ago, nothing happened. But it's possible somebody also took there last week and something happened. So the issue there, it is the issue of building on a formidable security situation in such a way that it doesn't happen. And even when it happens, the issue is taken care of and nipped at the bud, where it doesn't happen again. That's what we're talking about.
You see, we must be patriotic enough to balance whatever we want to do. The fact that I passed through that road and I was never a victim doesn't mean that I don't have friends. I don't have families who have suffered one form of attack or the other. What I'm just saying is this. It is very, very easy. As at yesterday, I still have somebody, a notable figure, saying we're at war. No, sir. You should understand my areas of divergence in whatever we are discussing here. Yes, we know there is a problem. Like I've said, maybe you didn't take that into observation. When this government came into power, what we were dealing with was simply Boko Haram, where people cannot go to church to worship on Sunday.
Even up to, it's extended up to Kano to Abuja.
And the rest, you can't go.
Blow up the United Nations.
I was in Jos when this whole thing started. Look at Abuja. Abuja was clearly infiltrated and all of that. Suddenly, we didn't hear about this again. It's as if this sort of people just regroup and said, okay, let us go back into the forest. And we can be talking about banditry. What we are saying is this. We should be patriotic as Nigeria. We should be patriotic enough to balance whatever it is. Like recently, looking at the election that is the upcoming election, a certain loyalist of a political party, they found the only place they found worthy to go and have a convergence was Lekki Tollgate. Thank God for how we're able to use the instrumentality of law to avert that from happening. And when you say this, they will say it's because nobody, they knew that rally, nobody can stop a rally from happening. But why Lekki Tollgate? Do you know what that will have stayed by it all? What I'm saying is this, we must be patriotic enough to balance whatever we will have. The government is not, we are not there yet at all. We are even far away from being there. But it is important to note the efforts, the progress we've made thus far as a government.
All right. Unfortunately, we don't have all the time anymore, but we thank you so much, Adedotun Ajulo, for coming on the program. Talking about patriotism, Nigerians we look forward to more patriotism, and we also look forward to more inspiration from government, because government is seen as the God on earth. You know, before God in heaven and then God on earth.
In the era of the divine rights of kings.
Fine. So the point there is Nigerians still look forward to that inspiration to be able to. They will take it up from there.
We'll get there.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right.